Is Zachlog the Great. So, doing something a little different tonight. I will be taking the 8 Values political test on GitHub. If you want to take it yourself, that is, try it yourself. It's 8values.github.io. It's a political quiz. Goes through four pairs of opposing values in terms of markets, equality versus free markets, in terms of diplomacy, the nation versus the world, in terms of the state, liberty versus authority, and in terms of society, tradition versus progress. Um, you answer 70 questions, and they try and assign a overall score, and and give a name to your political philosophy. So I'm going to go ahead and be going through this test and commenting on the questions as I go. Um, if you enjoy this, let me know. There's a few other kind of similar ones I've seen, which I'd be happy to do the same. And let's get this rolling. Click here to start. You'll be presented with a series of questions. For each one, click the button with your opinion on it. My opinion is that I've got it. Okay. Oppression by corporations is more of a concern than oppression by governments. Not that long ago, I would have had a different opinion of this. I would have had I would have more strongly disagreed, but the past few years, seeing the behavior of many large corporations, in the a lot of them multinational corporations, seeing their behavior, a lot of the violations of our rights, of our freedom of speech, of our and of our privacy. A lot of it is done by the corporations. Now, the other thing is that corporations as they exist today are partly a creation of the government, and they don't exist without our current legal system. But make that argument. But I have to go with neutral, unsure. Exciting start. Okay. Is necessary for the government to intervene in the economy to protect consumers. If I trusted the government to do so, but it seems like as a rule, whenever they intervene, they tend to make things worse, not better. Uh, haven't, for instance, seen a lot of action, to protect us from censorship by Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, etc. But in fact, basically they gave these platforms a free hand in Section 230. They gave these platforms a free hand to silence us, and not just the law, but the way it's been applied. They gave them a free hand to silence us, and face no consequences whatsoever. Disagree. The freer the markets, the freer the people. In economic liberty is a form of liberty. And so you can't have, full liberty without, being free to, buy and sell and make your living as you please. I will say, I think one potential limit on this is I think that is true, within a nation. When you start getting to the global market, when you start intermixing, a bunch of other nations, a bunch of other cultures, that starts changing the question. So agree. It is better to maintain a balanced budget than to ensure welfare for all citizens. Um, have to kind of comment on an implicit assumption here. Because when you don't maintain a balanced budget, that means you're borrowing. Okay, when a government borrows money, what they're doing is imposing a burden, you know, on people who have not even been born yet without their consent. And you're not ensuring their welfare by doing so. And there's a lot of things that can sound compassionate when you have an apparently infinite checkbook, but when you look at the real costs and who those costs are being imposed upon, no. So I agree. Publicly funded research is more beneficial to the people than leaving it to the market. Theoretically, pure science as, funded by, a government that doesn't, demand, practical results could be, a great thing. Practically speaking, looking at real world results, looking at the modern academy and the, research and, produced by the modern academy, a lot of which is, government funded, almost all of which is government funded to some degree. It produces that kind of thing, that model of doing things seems to produce a slow-moving rot. It wasn't always this bad, but there's a lot of corruption, there's a lot of waste, there's a lot of absolute garbage, coming out of, publicly funded research. So, disagree. Tariffs on international trade are important to encourage local production. I feel like I need to learn more about this. For now, I'm going to put a somewhat. I don't feel like I have enough to say, I have enough information to really say a lot. I'm going to put a somewhat reluctant agree. From each according to his ability, to each according to his needs. This sounds really nice. I mean, it sounds, fair. In case you don't know, I hope people who watch this do know, this is a slogan of communism. And there's two prepositional phrases in there, from each and to each, which leave out an important point. From each and to each, what it leaves out is it will be taken from each, it will be given to each, and who is doing that taking and giving? Who has that power? Who makes that decision? And you look at every heavy socialist, you look at every communist government ever, and basically the rule is the worst possible people you can imagine. It is the most evil ideology that has blighted the face of this planet. So, strongly disagree. It would be best if social programs were abolished in favor of private charity. There's actually a video I did a while ago. What is it? Do not steal another's pain. And that has some degree of comment on this. Government, social programs, government handouts, just giving people money without requiring anything of them, without seeing what's actually going on. It's not actually caring about them. It's not actually taking care of them. It's treating them like animals where, well, you need food. Here's food. That's all I'm going to do. And why? why are they in this situation? Don't care. There's no interest, no attempt to find out what's going on. Private charity, and not just private charity, but very local, where the people who are managing these things can see who is this person, what's going on. Is this person someone who has had a long string of bad luck, and geez, if we can just get him through the next couple months, this is someone who's going to get back up on his feet and go back out there and take care of himself? Or is this someone who has made a disastrous series of choices, and if we keep on feeding this, is going to continue making disastrous choices? Are we going to be funding those disastrous choices, making ultimately everything worse? And private charity, someone right there on the ground, in that city, can see these things and can try to actually help people rather than just handing them a check. So, strongly agree. Taxes should be increased on the rich to provide for the poor. Rich people have a lot of resources. That's the definition of being rich. Part of those resources is being able to hire very smart people to get them out of paying more taxes than they absolutely have to. These things don't end up falling on rich people. And as I just said, just handing a poor person a check without any concern for why they're in that situation, without any attempt to actually ameliorate the situation, just handing them a check doesn't really fix that much. Disagree. Inheritance is a legitimate form of wealth. An inheritance means that if I work hard my entire life, if I spend my money carefully, I kind of don't. I need to work on that. But if I save up money, then that money doesn't stop being mine when I'm dead, and I get to do what I want with it, give it to my kids. Can it be abused? Can it, have bad results? Yes. Can it have good results? Yes. There are, people who have inherited money and have done great things. There are people who have wasted their lives. There are poor people, poor people who, have, advanced and done great things. There are poor people who have wasted their lives. Agree. Basic utilities like roads and electricity should be publicly owned. Neutral, unsure. Government intervention is a threat to the economy. Don't see where it tends to make things better. Agree. Those with a greater ability to pay should receive better health care. This isn't. Again, this is one of the questions where there's built into there's this assumption that it's a moral question, and that's not. I don't think that's a very intelligent approach. I don't think that's a very smart way to approach this. I don't think it should be. I don't think that is a moral question. I think it's a simple, practical question. Doctors and nurses and people who make medical equipment deserve to be paid for their work. Someone has to pay them. And when it's the government doing it, it's creating a lot of messes. It creates a lot of waste and confusion. And our current system where we have government medical programs and insurance through employers, and insurance heavily regulated by the government through employers, is kind of creating the worst of both worlds, because no one really knows at any one point how much things cost, how much things should be paid for, or who should do all of it. Um, I'm going to put neutral unsure because I think the way the question is phrased is just a disaster. Quality education is a right of all people. Okay. For you to have an education, someone has to do the educating. For a student to get an education, someone has to be a teacher. Someone has to work. Someone has to write the book. Someone has to, design the curriculum. Someone has to teach the class. No one has a built-in right to someone else's labor. No one has a built-in right to someone else's work. And to say it is a blank is a right for everyone means that whoever does blank does not have the right to refuse. Disagree. The means of production should belong to the workers who use them. Again, another one that sounds nice. In practice, the people who, work at a factory, they may know all about their job. They may be excellent at their particular job. There are a lot of jobs up the chain from them. There are a lot of decisions that have to be made up the chain from them that they don't know anything about. And that, this group ownership doesn't make sense in practice. Someone has to make a decision, and the idea that everyone gets to say it, if it worked, if that was if that was a functional way to run a company and produce things efficiently, people would, a lot of companies would be doing it voluntarily, but they don't because it doesn't work. Strongly disagree. The United Nations should be abolished. I'm really not sure what good they do, other than sending in peacekeepers who have a lovely habit of abusing the local populations in various ways, of making human rights councils where nations like Saudi Arabia are on the Human Rights Council. United Nations should be abolished. Yes. Military action by our nation is often necessary to protect it. I'm not a pacifist. I don't think that we are morally obliged to lay back and let whoever is the most willing to commit violence to do whatever they want. I guess the sticking point here for me is often. I'm not sure. If you look back over the last, the 20th century up till today, there's, we were involved in a lot of military conflicts: World War I, World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, Gulf Wars 1 and 2. Very little of that had anything to do with protecting us. With protecting us. Now, opposing communism, the ideology of communism is, conquest, and continually, spreading more and more is part of that. So that had to be opposed, and maybe you need it. Maybe it had to be opposed with guns at some points. Most of the others, not, what were we doing in Iraq? What have we accomplished there? What are we doing in Afghanistan? What have we accomplished there? How does it protect any of us? Neutral unsure. I support regional unions such as the European Union. From everything, I'm not in the European Union. I'm not in a European Union nation. I am in the United States of America. I will say, from everything I've heard, if I were in the European Union, I would be saying, get us out. Disagree. It is important to maintain our national sovereignty. If the closer government is to you, the more accountable it is. The closer the decision making is to you, the more likely you can influence it. There's more I can do to change the way things are done in my town than in my state. There's more I can do to change things the way things are done in my state than in my country as a whole. So, strongly agree. A united world government would be beneficial to mankind. I kind of just told you my opinion on this. Strongly disagree. It is more important to retain peaceful relations than to further our strength. It seems like a false dichotomy. It doesn't seem like you can be strong and be peaceful. In fact, I think being strong is being strong, being clearly prepared to defend yourself is a good way to not have to defend yourself. I'm going to disagree with assumptions built into the question. Wars do not need to be justified to other countries. Agree. Military spending is a waste of money. I don't think it's definitionally a waste of money. We ought to defend ourselves. We ought to be capable of defending ourselves. There are people there are other people in the world who seek to do us harm, and one way of stopping that is by having men with guns and tanks and planes, and to say, no, you're not going to do that. Now, I will say the way our military is organized and managed today is amazingly wasteful. Neutral, unsure. International aid is a waste of money. Unfortunately, well, okay, particularly as administered by the government, yes. If you want to, learn something of my opinions about this, there's 2 other videos I have done, which are the horrifying moral dilemma of Africa, and what's the other one? Oh, yes, an essay by Kim DeToit, Let Africa Sink. So international aid is a waste of money. Agree. My nation is great. We've done some pretty awesome things. Agree. Research should be conducted on an international scale. I don't see anything wrong with it. Agree. Governments should be accountable to the international community. In practice, the international community is made up of a lot of governments that I like less than I like ours, and I don't love ours that much. Disagree. Even when protesting an authoritarian government, violence is not acceptable. it kind of depends what you mean by an authoritarian government, doesn't it? You know, enforcing laws, saying, you can't, no, you can't loot that store. No, protecting other people's rights and doing it forcefully is not an authoritarian government. But against communism against someone like Kim Jong Un, North Korea. I think from today's context, I'm going to say I agree because, anyway, my religious values should be spread as much as possible. Well, if I didn't think that, I wouldn't hold them. Christianity is a proselytizing religion. I can't fully be a Christian if I don't agree with that statement. Strongly agree. Our nation's values should be spread as much as possible. America is not who she should be. Our culture is, our cultural institutions, Hollywood, universities are run by some of the worst people imaginable. Those values should not be spread. Neutral. It is very important to maintain law and order. Law and order means people can go about their lives. People can go to work. People can, go out, go to a playground and play with their kids, and they don't have to be looking over their shoulder the entire time. They don't have to be, afraid at every moment whether they're going to be robbed or cheated. Yes, agree. Strongly agree. The general populace makes poor decisions. Some of them do. Absolutely, some of them do. You want a testament to that? Look at the numbers on the state lotteries. All of them, no. Somewhat disagree. Physician-assisted suicide should be legal. No. And part of the reason for that is that it, from a number of stories I've seen, that very quickly slides to, physician-recommended suicide, family pressuring people into suicide. No, that is a dangerous road. Disagree. The sacrifice of some civil liberties is necessary to protect us from acts of terrorism. I am somewhat embarrassed that, when I was a younger man, about 20 years ago, I probably would have been much more okay with this. Disagree, not strongly, but disagree. Government surveillance is necessary in the modern world. Government surveillance of some people. There are genuine bad actors out there. There are people who, plot to, do harm. There are people who plot to rob and steal and destroy. And sometimes you have to have some kind of surveillance to stop that before it happens. Some, yes. What's going on right now is apparently far beyond that. Agree, reluctantly. The very existence of the state is a threat to our liberty. By definition, the state is the that which has a monopoly on legitimate force. The state is violence. If you don't have the option of violence, you don't have the state. Agree. Regardless of political opinions, it is important to side with your country. There's a quote from G.K. Chesterton, actually, I just referred to it a few days ago, a little while ago, talking with Nate and Travis, when we were talking about G.K. Chesterton's poem Post-Recessional. He says, my country, right or wrong, is a thing no patriot would ever say except in desperate circumstances. It is like saying my mother drunk or sober. And he's right, mostly. But I will say, the thing is, if you're facing another group of people, another country, and they do believe that, and your country doesn't, you will lose. You have to have some of this. What degree, it's hard to say. Agree. All authority should be questioned. Yeah, agree. A hierarchical state is best. Hierarchies of various kinds are natural. Hierarchies of various kinds are what, arise when, people interact. A state is, I question the necessity of, governments as we understand them. Agree. It is important that government follows the majority opinion even when it is wrong. Democracy is not a holy principle. Democracy is not an end in itself. Democracy is a means to an end. Democracy should be the goal, the end is, a well-ordered society. Freedom, freedom and, human flourishing. People able to live their lives, make a decent living, raise a family. That is the goal. Okay? If democracy gets you there, excellent. Go with that. If democracy isn't what gets you there, democracy is a means, not an end. So disagree. The stronger the leadership, the better. Agree. Democracy is more than a decision-making process. Kind of. Democracy is also, an attitude, a way of looking at the world. And it has pluses and minuses. As I think C.S. Lewis said, the theory, the philosophy of democracy, where we're all, no one's above one another. We're all as good as everyone else. We're all as good as each other. What it tends to practically work out to is, no one looks at a CEO does not look at a waitress and think, and because of democratic impulses, think she's as good as me. But a waitress might look at a CEO and because of that think, well, I'm just as good as him. In that sense, it can be a promote envy, be a promoter of envy. It's more than a decision-making process. I agree. I don't agree that it's necessarily always positive. Environmental regulations are essential. Neutral and sure. A better world will come from automation, science, and technology. No. I mean, not by themselves. If the society is not moral, if the society does not have, healthy values, then, automation, science, and technology are just going to produce more effective devils. Um, I mean, obviously technology can make a lot of things better, but it has to be connected to a sane and healthy values. So disagree. Children should be educated in religious or traditional values. Um, yes. Uh, you know, as opposed to what? As opposed to given no values, no moral instruction. That'd be a great plan. As opposed to and today's values. Quote unquote tolerance, anti-racism. Uh, no. Children should be educated. Strongly agree. Traditions are of no value on their own. Kind of. I think the thing is, and people who take this kind of tack don't tend to take into account something that has survived for a long time. You know, is doing something useful. It may not be perfect. There may be better ways to do it. It may have destructive side effects, but if a practice has been around for a long time, there's a reason it's still there. Chesterton's fence. Disagree. Religion should play a role in government. I think that morality plays a role in government, and I think that secular humanism has produced secular humanism and atheism have not produced fantastic government and fantastic moral values. Agree. Churches should be taxed the same way other institutions should be taxed. No one should be taxed. Strongly disagree. Climate change is currently one of the greatest threats to our way of life. They've been predicting imminent disaster on this for longer than I've been alive. It's always 10 more years and we're all going to be doomed. Still here. Strongly disagree. It is important that we work as a united world to combat climate change. Strongly disagree. Society was better many years ago than it is now. We have fancier toys. We have better computers and better cars, and better televisions and better airplanes. We don't know who we are. We don't know what we're doing. We don't know why. Agree. It is important that we maintain the traditions of our past. Already kind of heard my opinion here. Agree. It is important that we think in the long term beyond our lifespans. Yes. And honestly, I think part of this is the same thing I was just saying. Those who can look back to the past, those who can respect where they came from, their history and their traditions, are the same people who are going to look to the future. So yes, strongly agree. Reason is more important than maintaining our culture. Give me a moment. Reason and abstract logic, if you separate that from the way people actually live their lives, it can go insane very quickly. And there's a lot of things, music, going to a concert with friends is not strictly rational. There's no rational case for it. It's emotional. There's a lot of things we do that aren't easily justified on a strictly rational, strictly logical basis. Disagree. Drug use should be legalized or decriminalized. I don't think most. I don't think most illegal drugs, even down to marijuana. I don't think they're good for people. I don't think they help people. I think they damage us. Should the government be handling that? Should the government be the one managing that? I don't know. Somewhat disagree. Same-sex marriage should be legal. What is marriage? What is the purpose of marriage? The purpose of marriage is for the raising of kids, the production and raising of kids. Two men don't make a child. Same-sex marriage is a non-entity. It doesn't make any sense. Strongly disagree. No cultures are superior to others. Well, if that's true, it's kind of funny how many people from some cultures, from some countries, are desperate to get in to other countries that aren't any superior to them. And then they turn those countries into places just like theirs, and then everyone's miserable. No, this is idiotic. There are some cultures that that cure diseases and put men on the moon, and there are some cultures where bald men are hunted down and murdered for the gold that's supposed to be inside their heads. Yes, some cultures are superior to others. Strongly disagree. Sex outside marriage is immoral. Yes. Yes. Sex, one of the primary functions of sex is to produce children. Producing children in an environment where you can't, that's not healthy for them, is abusive. So yes. Strongly agree. It is important to accept, if we accept migrants at all, it is important that they assimilate into our culture. Yes. Yes. If someone's coming here, if someone's coming here to stay, it is because they must think that this place is overall better in some way. But if they come here and they bring everything with them, they bring their way of life with them, they are trying to get the benefit, but not, support it. They are destroying the very thing they are pursuing. So, strongly agree. Abortion should be prohibited in most or all cases. Yes, murder should be illegal. Agree. Gun ownership should be prohibited for those without a valid reason. Kind of funny, the people who, are all for gun control don't seem to notice that the only way to enforce it is by people with guns. Do you, it's basically, do you have the right to protect yourself, or does the government, do you have power, do you have independence, or does the government have control? Gun ownership, strongly disagree. I support single-payer universal health care. Covered this earlier, disagree. Prostitution should be illegal. I think prostitution is immoral. Not all immoral things must be illegal. It is abusive. The best argument I've heard against this is that making it illegal puts it strictly in the hands of criminals and makes it more abusive. I'm kind of sketchy on that question. I'm going to agree. Maintaining family values is essential. Kind of already covered this. Agree. To chase progress at all costs is dangerous. Progress is, that's not a goal. Progress is a state of change. Progress by itself, that doesn't mean anything, that doesn't define anything. And so we must make progress towards what? So it's, agree. Genetic modification is a force for good, even on humans. I mean, there are a number of genetic diseases it would be nice to eliminate. I think it's very risky and, likely to be abused. Disagree. We should open our borders to immigration. You can have open borders or you can have a welfare state. You can't have both. We currently have a welfare state. And, people come in here and, take advantage. People come in here who cannot support themselves here and take advantage of that welfare state. We are paying the world's poor to move here. How does that make us better at all? Strongly disagree. Governments should be as concerned about foreigners as they are about their own citizens. It sounds nice. It really sounds nice. But what if you reverse it? Or okay, you should be as worried about other people's children as you are about your neighbor's children as you are about your own. Again, it sounds nice, but let's flip that. You should worry about your own kids. You shouldn't worry about your own kids be any more protective of your own kids than your neighbor's kids. That doesn't sound good. Disagree. All people, regardless of factors like culture or sexuality, should be treated equally. No, we should be treated as our behavior merits. People who, who are productive, people who are helpful, people who are, contribute to others should be treated better than people who are destructive, people who are, violent, people who are, who, steal or, leech off of others. Disagree. It's important that we further my group's goals above all others. If I didn't want to further my group's goals, it wouldn't be my group, would it? Agree. Okay. Results. Economic axis. In favor of markets. 72.4% in favor of markets. 27.6% in favor of equality. Diplomatic axis. Patriotic. 75% in favor of the nation. 25% in favor of the world. I'm a 1/4 a globalist. Civil axis. Status. 67.5% authority, 32.5% liberty. Social axis, very traditional. 76.3% tradition, 23.7% progress. Closest match, neoconservatism. As I understand the term, no. I am not on the same team as Bill Kristol and Ben Shapiro and Jonah Goldberg. So that one I rather disagree with. Okay. Most of this assessment I think is fairly accurate. The third one, I'm a little hesitant about, and I will tell you why. Statist. Um, by by preference, I'm actually much closer to an anarchist. I think we'd get along better. It's possible we could get along better without any government at all. But if we do, I'm kind of in the ideal, and it's the ideal versus the practical right now. I think we would get along better without any government at all. But if we do have a government, then, which we do, then I think it should be doing this, this, and that, and not this, this, and that. So that's, kind of, possibly reflects an internal contradiction. Possibly reflects an inconsistent philosophy on my part. But that is how they read me. Hope you found this interesting. Thank you for watching. And oh, if you like this, let me know in the comments. Like I said, there are others like this, other tests similar to this. I would be happy to go through. And God be with you.